Okay. Hope everybody's doing great. I've been working on my second Kindle book or booklet, and I just found something pretty interesting. I thought I would share it. I wanted to share it with you. So let's see how this goes here. We'll just go over, where's it, over here? Okay, so this is the basically a word processor or something. I don't know. Open it up a little bit. It's a little thing I found. I thought it was pretty neat. See, go right here. So this is my second booklet I'm going to upload to Kindle. And I already have a book on the variable speed of light. It's already uploaded, ready on Kindle. But I just want to show this before I upload this. This is basically going to be what the upload is. So I just thought it was pretty neat. So let me go ahead and show it. There we go. Identifying human DNA relationships.
Identifying human DNA relationships. Y chromosome and mtDNA haplogroups form ancient lineages identifying where and who everyone came from. Known human history. The study of ancient civilizations is a very important part of who we all are. Ancient sources give us a glimpse of what life was like and what the challenges were. There were clearly many challenges since there was always some ruler attempting to achieve dominance over all the people. Even so, life was able to take place not too dissimilar from our own lives, even going off to school. To be clear, we are not so different from each other. We are actually closely related to each other. Still, each of us has a single paternal and maternal lineage that can be traced back to its origin. There are 3 original paternal lineages and 3 original maternal lineages. The paternal haplogroup is traced by way of the non-recombinant male Y chromosome, and the maternal haplogroup is traced by way of the non-recombinant mitochondrial DNA of the mother. That's 3 groups of paternal ancestors and 3 groups of maternal ancestors. For the paternal ancestors, it's A, B, C, D, and E as one group, F, G, H, I, and J as the other group, and K, L, M, N, O, P, Q, R, S, and T as the remaining group. The maternal haplogroups are L, M, and N, along with additional subdivisions. There's a little next, and then the Semitic group as the last. This doesn't make sense for the ethnicity of the maternal lineages not to match the paternal lineages. It's not a problem if all the lineages existed at the same time. It is a problem if it is purported to be a progression of lineages. You can't have Africans producing Semitic males and Eurasian females, who in turn produce Eurasian males and then Semitic females. This is nonsense number 1. There are other problems. Another problem is that they have the Neanderthal and the Denisovans as being archaic humans, which are said to precede the African lineages. The problem with that is that Neanderthals and Denisovans are both found in Eurasia. Another problem is that Neanderthals have more in common with Eurasians, especially Asians, and not Africans. The big problem is that all the ancient civilizations are contemporaneous to begin with. Before I explain how the ordering is a problem, I need to highlight what we can easily verify. There is one human haplogroup lineage that we can positively identify. The priests of Israel were all supposed to be directly descended from Aaron of the tribe of Levi. Accurate genealogy is very important to the Israelites and to our investigation. The mandate was for every descendant of Aaron to tell their sons that they were to be the only legitimate priests of Israel. No one else was allowed to make this claim of priesthood. It turns out that out of everyone claiming to be a direct paternal descendant of Aaron, almost half have a marker called the Cohen modal haplotype. It's J1P58. No other haplotype even comes close to being a direct descendant of Moses' brother Aaron. Not the J2, not the I1 or I2, not the E, G, R, or Q. Or T. The Cohen modal haplotype is key to understanding who's who. It identifies the descendants of Aaron, the tribe of Levi, the sons of Jacob and Abraham, which includes both Jews and Arabs. It distinguishes the descendants of Abraham from the other Semitic peoples such as the Elamites, Assyrians, Arameans, and Lydians, which are all the other original Semitic civilizations. It identifies the Semitic civilizations as being haplogroup F, G, H, I, and J. We should already know that the African haplogroups are A, B, and E. The C haplogroup is found almost exclusively in Eurasia, especially Asia. The D haplogroup is found in Asia, although it is also found in and near Africa. The most intriguing thing concerns the C paternal haplogroup. A, B, and E are found in Africa, while C is exclusive to Asia for the most part. The interesting thing about C is that it shares an SNP marker with everyone who is not African. Those who subscribe to the out-of-Africa theory suggest that the C paternal haplogroup is the ancestor of everyone outside of Africa. This would mean that the African civilizations gave rise to all the other civilizations that are contemporaneous with them. The problem is that the Lydians, Arameans, Assyrians, Elamites, Jews, and Arabs all existed at the same time as Egypt and Kush. The Eurasian civilizations also existed at that time. We can't assume the conclusion of Africans being the oldest lineages when all the civilizations existed at the same time. There were the ancient inhabitants of Italy, the Thracians of Greece, Siberians, Asians, Medes, Gomer in Europe and India, and the Javan Mediterranean Sea people in the cities of Elisha, Dodanim, Kittim, and Tarshish. All of these existed at the time Egypt existed, so there are a lot of things not adding up very well. SNP genetic markers. There are genetic markers that tie the three major paternal groups together. The SNP marker that ties the Africans with the rest of the world is called the CF-XDE marker. This is a marker that the C haplogroup has, but the Africans do not have it, not even the D or A and B haplogroups have it. The C haplogroup is the one found almost exclusively in Asia, although it also went into Europe and as far as the Americas, the Pacific Islands, and Australia. Of course, the paternal haplogroup lettering assumes an out-of-Africa scenario. This is the reason it begins the A haplogroup with Africans. It's just wrong to suggest that the Africans produced everyone else when they all existed at the same time. There is also reason to believe that the African lineages are the youngest and least original of them all. We need to find a scenario that fits all the migration patterns in history and all the historical records. The SNP marker that ties the Semitic populations with the Eurasians is called the IJK marker. Remember that the J haplogroup is the one that has been positively identified as the descendants of Abraham, who in turn is descended from Eber, of the Hebrews, and Arphaxad. The question would be why they share a marker with Eurasians. Again, it's not that Eurasians descended from them, because Eurasians had been around just as long or longer than the Semitic nations previously mentioned. These SNP markers are a big deal since it is absolute genetic evidence. We need to be sure that we understand what is going on here. Did all the ancient civilizations exist at the same time, or did one group of Africans produce Semitics, which in turn produced Eurasians? Not to mention that the claim would also mean that the African mtDNA produced the Eurasian maternal mtDNA group first, which then produced the Semitic maternal mtDNA group. That's not a good fit, also keeping in mind that Neanderthals have more in common with Eurasians than Africans. We need to rely on written ancient historical texts. All the ancient civilizations existed at the same time. They have many separate records of the same events. We need a coherent explanation of what happened that fits perfectly with known human history. We know each and every original ancient civilization because we have records of them all. Each one of them has an identifying haplogroup designation. The only way that they can all exist at the same time and have SNP markers that tie them together is if the ordering of the paternal haplogroups is all wrong. There must be a way to fit everything perfectly because it is genetics that we are talking about. Genetics doesn't lie. What if the Abrahamic ancestor that has the IJK-SNP marker was the oldest son of the Semitic common ancestor, Shem, who was also the brother of the Eurasian common ancestor, Japheth? The oldest Semitic brother, Arphaxad, can share a marker with his uncle Japheth. That is entirely possible. Now what if the marker was lost when Arphaxad's brother Elam of the Elamites was born while retaining another HIJK-SNP marker? That is entirely possible. What if the Assyrian ancestor lost the previous marker when he was born with the GHIJK-SNP marker? What if the ancestor of the Arameans lost that previous marker when he was born retaining another FGHIJK-SNP marker? Now what if the ancestor of the C paternal haplogroup retained the CF-SNP marker that was lost to all his younger brothers and cousins? This is entirely possible, and it fits perfectly with the known human history. This means that the main haplogroup designations are exactly backwards and possibly others as well. Now let's see what really happened. Remember the C paternal haplogroup all by itself in Europe, Mesopotamia, Asia, America, Australia, and the Pacific Islands? That ancestor would have had to have been some kind of great king early on when history began. What great king was there in Mesopotamia, the cradle of civilization, who had a common ancestor with Africans? This is very important. There must have been a great king from the beginning who had very many sons. Can anyone think of a name? How about Nimrod, the son of Cush? Boom! It can't possibly be anyone else who is the great ancestor of every male descendant with a C paternal haplogroup closely related to the A and B found in Africa. We have been able to positively identify the J paternal haplogroup and the C paternal haplogroup with known recorded human history. This is going to explain a lot. For decades, anthropologists, genealogists, and such have been going back and forth on the identity of the Olmec population. They clearly had Asian features at times, and sometimes they had features resembling Africans. No. There has never been a consensus that they were somehow related to Africans. That's just silly. Humph. They look more Polynesian, but were they Polynesian? In America, the main paternal haplogroups are Q and C3. The Polynesians have the C2 paternal haplogroup. This means that the Olmecs could easily have shared the same common ancestor Nimrod with Polynesians, giving them a similar appearance. Identifying the Northern Eurasian nations. Everything has to fit perfectly since we are dealing with genetic evidence. We have an isolated king with unique Y DNA in Mesopotamia early on whose father is Cush, and there is an extensive signature of his Y DNA throughout the area and beyond. We have the Cohen modal haplotype identifying the oldest Semitic lineage IJ. The I haplogroup is included with J since they share the IJK marker of their great-uncle Japheth, who is the ancestor of all Eurasians. This ancestor produced 7 civilizations known as the Northern Nations, which are all under the KSNP marker, which includes the K, L, M, N, O, P, Q, R, S, and T haplogroup designations. These are the 7 nations north of Mesopotamia. They have been named as Tubal of early Italy, K, Tiras of the Thracians of early northern Greece, L, Meshech in Siberia, N, Magog in East Asia, O, Madai of the Medes, PQ, Gomer of Europe and northern India, R, Javan of the Mediterranean as stated earlier, T. M and S are closely associated, and they are closely associated with the K haplogroup of Tubal also in the same area. Some lineages separated so long ago that they have become separate lineages. The M and S, for example, are from 2 sides of the same island of Papua New Guinea, while the K is from the surrounding area near and in Australia. They probably all belong to the same original K haplogroup. The other paternal haplogroup of Australia is the C4 of Nimrod. This is basically all of the northern nations and their migrations. One of the nations that traveled far and wide was the Medes. There is an interesting story told of Madai, the ancestor of the Medes. He asked to marry one of the daughters of Shem. That would be one of the daughters who was under the N designation of maternal mitochondrial DNA. This means that everywhere the Medes went, there was a Semitic mtDNA lineage that followed them. In America, it is the A mtDNA haplogroup. In Europe, it is X and W. These letter designations can be quite confusing. The AX and W mtDNA lineages are from the same root lineage. In America, the mtDNA haplogroup lineages are A, B, C, and D. The A mtDNA lineage is Semitic. The B mtDNA haplogroup is another separate Semitic lineage from the Middle East, clearly not the same daughter of Shem who married Madai. It may have crossed the Pacific to reach the Americas. The C and D mtDNA haplogroups are Eurasian from the daughters of Japheth. Another interesting thing is that 95% of Western European maternal mtDNA is Semitic. The Eurasian M haplogroup mtDNA is more toward the east side of India and north in Siberia, while the African L haplogroup mtDNA is almost exclusively in Africa, except for later migrations. Identifying the Semitic nations. Arphaxad with the IJK-SNP marker is the oldest son of Shem. Arphaxad is the ancestor of all Hebrews, Jews, and Arabs, and it's not so easy telling the difference at first glance. As mentioned, J1P58 is the Cohen modal haplotype identifier. J1 can be Arabic as well. J2 is probably Judaic in most cases, and the M172 designation is likely the descendants of the houses of Kings David and Solomon. The I1 and I2 haplogroups, of course, with the IJK-SNP marker, are Abrahamic as well. If history is any indication, I1 is probably the tribe of Dan and I2 is probably the tribe of Asher according to their migration routes. The H paternal Y haplogroup is definitely the descendants of Elam. The Elamite descendants migrated to India, where they are known today as none other than Elamo-Dravidians. Who would have known? Gypsies and Romani are also H descendants of Elam, and they also claim to be Judaic, and in fact they do have a significant amount of J2, second to the H haplogroup in their populations as well. Keeping in mind that the paternal haplogroup designations are backwards, the G haplogroup is the Syrians descended from Ashur who became their ancestor god, as often occurred among pagan nations. The descendants of Nimrod and Assyrians are closely linked. They are also known together as Sumerians. It's the same people. Sumerians are not prehistory. Abraham was a Sumerian from a Sumerian city called Ur. Abraham had a run-in with Nimrod. One thing people must realize is that all the ancient civilizations existed at the same time. It's almost like academics hate the truth. The Arameans have the designation of F. The F means several different things. The CF marker means C, Nimrod, and F, which is FT. FGHIJKLMNOPQRS and T. The F is also its own lineage, in fact at least 2 or 3 lineages. It's very confusing. So, F can be the Aramean descendants of Aram, and F can also be the Lydians descended from Lud. In fact, there are 2 separate F lineages that are not even connected to each other. That's it for the Semitic descendants of Shem. There's a lot of ancient history that we need to know to understand our genetics.
Oops.
This book is only scratching the surface of what we can learn from ancient human history.
Getting tired.
Identifying the Hamitic nations. Ham is identified as being the youngest son of Noah. Nimrod was probably the firstborn son of Cush, the oldest son of Ham, considering the genetics. Nimrod's father and brothers migrated to Africa, where they became the Cushites, having the genetic haplogroup markers of A and B, Nimrod with the C haplogroup is technically a Cushite, being the son of Cush, except that neither he nor his descendants ever went to Africa.
Well, it's not working very well. I guess my computer's wants to upload something everyone
And genetically, although it could be backwards from here, is Phut-E1, who is the ancestor of the North Africans who were the first to be called Phoenicians in earlier times.
It's getting bogged down, I guess.
And it's the Canaanites E2 descended from, of all people, Canaan. Go figure. These are still the original ancient civilizations. They were the first ever recorded civilizations. The story of Canaan is sad. They did not go to Africa like they were supposed to as his other brothers did, and they were largely dispersed or eliminated. One of the surviving tribes, however, was called the Sinite tribe. They moved down into Sinai, named after them, and then they migrated all the way to the land of Sinim, named after them. This land is otherwise known as Sino-China. They are the only other Hamitic people in Asia, having the D paternal haplogroup, besides the descendants of Nimrod that had the C paternal haplogroup. The truth is stranger, or more interesting, than fiction. The E3 haplogroup is Mitzrayim, whose mother was said to be Egyptus. And now you know the rest of the story, the whole story spelled out in DNA. This haplogroup is very large today since Mitzrayim had many sons in a great land with lots of room for expansion. It includes V12, V32, M81, M123, and many other notable ancient groups. DNA doesn't lie, and it is very interesting when you know exactly what happened to everyone and where everyone came from. Each haplogroup has its own unique story. There's no reason to be afraid of learning all about all our ancestors. And there's more. Europeans are descended from Gomer, and they probably don't even know who that is. Gomer had 3 sons, so his descendants are divided up into 3 lineages. R1a is Ashkenaz, R1b is Riphath, and R2 is the paternal Y chromosome haplogroup of the living descendants of Togarmah. In case you are wondering where all these ancient civilizations came from, they are the descendants of 16 lineages that are of the 16 grandsons of Noah. There is a record of these nations called the Table of Nations that lists the genealogies. You would think people would be interested in this information, but people are easily scared away from learning the truth about where we all came from. It's quite profound to realize that we are the survivors of human history. These 16 people are the ancestors of all of us, and we happen to know all their names. Judaic people descended from Judah were spread all over the world, but especially to the north, the west, and the east. If you look where the J2 paternal haplogroup is today, it is north of the Levant, west and east of the Levant. The J2 is found as far away as the land of Sinim among the Uyghur population where the Sinite Canaanite tribe lived in Sino-China. Yes, the Uyghurs are Judaic. The descendants of the tribe of Dan were the first ones to wander away from Israel since they were shipbuilders of the Mediterranean. They named everything Dan everywhere they went into Europe. This means that they are the ones with the Semitic I1 paternal haplogroup. The I2 has all the migration routes of the tribe of Asher that was closely associated with the tribe of Dan, albeit with their own paternal haplogroup lineage. I1 and I2 are referred to as Germanic when they are in fact Semitic. That's weird. Otherwise, everyone in Europe would be the descendants of Gomer, the guy they don't even know existed, and as stated previously, 95% of Western Europeans have Semitic maternal mitochondrial DNA. For whatever reason. Otherwise, Europeans would look Asian as some Eastern Europeans do. Many Southeast Asians have features derived from the descendants of King Nimrod, CY haplogroup, and the Canaanite Sinite tribe, DY haplogroup, both of which are Hamitic. The C and D haplogroups are also found throughout Mongolia all the way to Japan. The C haplogroup, of course, went all the way through North America to South America, where it remains to this day among the Waorani, Wayuu, and Kichwa tribes. They are the direct descendants of King Nimrod, the first king of the world. How about that? Now, don't you want to know more about the history of humans? Again, this book is just barely scratching the surface of what can be known. We just can't be making up our own version of human history. We have to follow the historical records that we have. For example, I had designated Tubal as being the K paternal haplogroup when I heard that the descendants of Tubal were among the first to live in what is now Italy. So, I went to find the DNA makeup of Italy today, and I found that 8% of the Y chromosome in central Italy today is K. I heard that the Medes moved into Europe, which I had designated as Q, so I went to see the Y chromosome makeup of Europeans, where the Medes were known to have been, and sure as day, the Q paternal Y haplogroup was there. I had designated F to cover both Lydians and Arameans, so I looked carefully at the Simon's Genome Project diagram, and there are two separate distinct F lineages, so much so that there was another haplogroup lineage, H, between them. Everything works out perfectly. It has to, or else something is wrong. When considering the human haplogroup designations, we need to realize what we are looking at. It is the lineages of known human history going back to their origin. So what if it proves we are all descended from Noah? Is that a problem? The truth can't be the problem. We are the problem if we get in the way of the truth. What is there to be afraid of when the evidence is on your side? Be afraid if the evidence is not on your side. As far as historical records are concerned, the Torah is very accurate as to what happened. It not only tells of the good events, but it records all the failures and losses as well, unlike many of the other historical accounts from the pagan nations around them. It places a high value on truthfulness. This is exactly what we are looking for when looking for answers to our questions. After all, it is the Cohen modal haplotype that identifies the lineages of Abraham. No other historical record was ever able to do anything like that. Dealing with all the disinformation. Now that we have been able to establish exactly where we all came from, there are still a lot of big-headed academics who think they know better than God, so to speak. Send them my way. Let's see if they can back up any of their assumptions, assertions, speculations, conjectures, imaginations, confirmation biases, and fantasies. They seem to think people jumped down out of the trees and began building megaliths. The dissimilarity between the Y chromosome of troglodytes and humans is extreme. The greater diversity of the human haplogroups, both maternal and paternal, is in and near Mesopotamia, not Africa. As you move away from the cradle of civilization, the diversity of haplogroups thins out. In Africa, the paternal haplogroups are A, B, and E. That's it. And of the maternal haplogroups, it's only L. All the other haplogroups are outside of Africa. In Europe there is R and I. In the Americas there is Q and C. In Australia there is C and K. In Siberia there is N. In Asia there is O and some C and D. The academics, big-headed academics, make themselves look bad in their isolated little bubble that they made for themselves high above and far removed from the common folk. Send them my way to see if they will stoop to talk to me. The main thing is not to be afraid to tell the truth with all the evidence on your side. We survived the global flood, and we survived all the wars of the ancient civilizations. Now all we have to do is survive the onslaught and mudslinging of academia. That's why we need the shield of faith in the truth to stop all the mud being thrown at us. Did I mention that the continents broke apart in the days of Peleg about 100 years after the global flood? Yes, it's the reason there are glacial striations in South America, Africa, India, and Australia going from south to north from when they were all still connected to Antarctica. It's the reason jaguars were separated from leopards, and it's the reason why all the animals and ecosystems froze and were often buried by tsunamis in the Arctic regions of North America and Siberia. This is a subject for another booklet. The truth is often stranger than fiction, and we have these academics, big-headed academics, who always get in the way of learning and truth. The Torah says that the floodwater covered the highest mountain by 15 cubits. How did they know that? Sauropods are aquatic and didn't have to be in the ark. They congregated at the highest places underwater, and the water came up to their shoulders, 15 cubits. It's so simple when you come from the Amazon jungle. Duh. I like who I am. I don't hate my ancestors. I am an I1M253 descendant of Dan, Jacob, and Abraham. I am one of the lineages closely related to the Vikings that was traced back to the Northern Alps. They could have been a part of the Vikings, considering that I do also have a considerable amount of Scandinavian autosomal DNA. Eventually they ended up in Edinburgh, Scotland, where I was able to trace my paternal lineage back to. I do also have a Jewish great-grandfather somewhere, but don't tell anyone, it's a secret.
And don't make fun of my nose.
And don't make fun of my nose.
I am what I am, and I'm a survivor.
I am what I am, and I'm a survivor.
That could be another booklet
That could be another booklet too, as far as that goes.
In conclusion, there is a lot more work to be done in genetic lineages,
of course.
Some
people are just too afraid to go there. This paralysis is holding people back from learning the reality of their origin. There is no reason to be afraid of the facts. Get some courage and face the facts. Stand up for the truth. You have the facts on your side. All this research I have done on my own, and I am far from the greatest scholar there ever was. Surely there are many people who can add to all the things that I have found. One more story. Remember the Warani in South America that are descended from Nimrod? They killed 5 missionaries, Christians who believed in the teaching of Abraham. It was like the story of Nimrod and Abraham all over again, where Nimrod tried to kill Abraham. One of the Warani tribal members who killed the missionaries ended up becoming a Christian himself, and he adopted the son of one of the missionaries that he killed because he said that the boy didn't have any jungle skills. This event had happened basically in what was then my short lifetime, and I heard about it when I was going to school in the Amazon jungle. This could explain my interest in genetics. I was the minority growing up. I was the one who was cursed at and laughed at as I walked alone on the streets. Somehow, I still like the Brazilian people, and they usually like me when I speak their language. I am very comfortable in any part of Brazil. Depending on the politics, I wouldn't mind living there. It's not foreign to me. Portugal isn't too bad either. I was contemplating remaining in Germany too, for that matter. A lot of my friends in the army and places were islanders from Guam, Samoa, Puerto Rico, Philippines, Cuban, Mexican, etc. Anyway, I guess that's about it for right now.
And that's it. That's about the end. So, if I can get out of here. So that's about it. Yeah, that's my second book that I want to put on Kindle. So my computer will hold up on me. Stop acting up. There we go. We got peoples. You got Alec Cox, Sandy C. And see anybody else? Random Green TV. There we go. And wow, Kristen Carpenter. There you go. Good to see you today. Echo from Random Green. No echo at my end. Oh. How are the Neanderthals? Oh, who are the Neanderthals? They're Eurasians. Cradle of civilization, Mesopotamia. JJ's voice has changed since last time. He's been breathing in helium. Don't get it. Forget what? I just want to ask JJ about the Jews of modern Israel. So many saying they're fake from Khazari Turks, something like that. Yeah, but they're only talking about Ashkenazi Jews, and they have the same, almost exact genetic makeup as every other Jewish population there is. It's just nonsense that people are making up. See, so let's go ahead and put this here. I want to ask JJ about the Jews of modern Israel. So many saying they're fake from Khazarian Turks, something like that. Which is interesting because uh, the geneticist working for AIG, Nathaniel Jensen, he's also suggesting that the J haplogroup is Turkish. But as far to answer the question is that the genetic makeup of the Jewish people has like a signature. And that signature is everywhere the Jewish people are. You take a sample of the Jewish people, you're going to get a certain percentage of certain haplogroups. The main one, of course, the largest one being J2, because they tend to be a little bit exclusive. But like in the book of Esther, the Medes, many of the Medes became part of the Jewish people. And if you look at the what I call the signature of the Jewish population, the genetic signature of the Jewish population, you will almost always see the Q in their population, which is from the Medes. From way back in the book of Esther when the Medes became Jews. And of course there's G because that's Assyrian, and of course that's the place where the Jewish people were exiled to several times, And then there's a G, and then there's E often. E is either Egyptian or possibly Canaanite. That's fairly common. Albert Einstein was an E. Then there's, I said G, and then there's R, usually R1b because that's Mediterranean in the Jewish population. And then sometimes, actually only in Portugal, there's a T from Tarshish of Iberia, where the Portuguese Jewish population is, but not every Jewish population has the T in their population. In fact, there's another Jewish population in Portugal that has no T in it. So, and they don't have hardly anything from anywhere else other than the J2 and maybe the R1b or something, but it's very much original Jewish genes or in Portugal. But so the T is actually the descendants of Javan, which are Elisha, Dodanim, and Kittim, and which are cities in and around the Mediterranean areas. And they were basically southern Greek people that had trade with the Horn of Africa. And today there's more tea in the Horn of Africa than there is anywhere else in the world, basically. But yeah, so and T is, of course, descended from Japheth because it's Javan. So it's not Nathaniel Jensen's suggestion that T is the Jewish people, and or that the rest of Eurasians are Jewish people or Semitic people, because there's just way too many Eurasian haplogroups, which is fine for 7 sons of Japheth, but it's not fine for 5 sons of Shem, who were somehow supposedly transplanted out of the Middle East into Eurasia. That just that doesn't even make sense. But anyway, no, the Jewish people are not Turks and they're not Khazarians. They moved into the Kazakh area in between the Baltic and Caspian Sea and the Baltic Sea. I mean the Black Sea and the Caspian Sea. They moved into that area, and many of that area became Jews or became sympathetic to Jewish people. But the accusation is of the Ashkenazi Jews saying that they're Khazarian, but they actually have the same genetic signature of all the other Jewish people all over everywhere else in the world, like I said. And that's mainly J1, J2, sometimes I in their population. I mean, there's a little bit of I, there's some Q, there's G, there's R, there's E, and in some cases T, like in the only place I saw the T was in Portugal, but sometimes they include the T in the Jewish population as well, but it's mostly from Portugal. A single population, Judaic population in Portugal. The other Judaic population in Portugal doesn't even have the T, or many of the other ones. So the one that has the T would be the more liberal Judaic population. But the Sephardic Jews in Northern Africa, they all have the same percentages and everything, which is incidentally are the same haplogroups of the Phoenician people as well that went all the way to America. Well, of course, the Phoenicians are the T haplogroup. They have the T haplogroup. So Dr. Nathaniel Jensen could be confusing the Phoenicians with the Jewish people because they're very similar. But anyway, been rambling on about that pretty much. So, I changed my voice a little bit. Yeah, I was going to put a male voice on there, but I figured, no, it's good enough. Sounds good. Reading my book. Somebody to read the book. Well, Rich Man and Lazarus. Chinese had a huge Christian movement. We don't hear much about that anymore. That was stamped out for sure. The same as everything else is being stamped out. But to be sure, there are still house churches for sure in China. That is almost for sure. Severe persecution. Chinese Jews, okay. Some Chinese Jews still speak Hebrew. Well, that's interesting. Well, that's true. That is true. Is that because I heard a story of one time somebody was handing out broadsides with Jews for Jesus, and this Chinese guy comes up to them and says, "I'm very offended. I'm very offended." And so the guy's looking at him, asking, "Why are you offended? You're Chinese." And it turns out he was a Chinese Jew. And he apparently had a little bit of curly hair. So that's that is a thing, Chinese Jews still speaking Hebrew. So I don't know where that's from, but I've heard of it before. Let's see. See, both Hebrews, Jewish Lazarus was poor, and a rich man treated Lazarus badly. Rich man is also in Sheol. Lazarus was in paradise with Abraham's bosom. 95% of Europeans have Semitic mtDNA, did she say? Yes. I mean, it's hard to believe. I'm just looking at what the results of the tests are, and genetic testing, and because maybe 1% is L, which would be African, 1 or 2% maybe 2% in Southern Europe, and then the other percentage would have to be M, but M is like you only have like 2 or 3%. When you go farther north, you have M in the European, mostly Eastern European population. There'd be more M, but in the Western European population, it's 95, at least 95% have Semitic mtDNA. For whatever reason, I have no idea. It just happens to be a fact that it's the lineage. I myself, I have what is it? It's HG3 or something like that. That's a Semitic lineage. But and it's of course the mitochondrial DNA doesn't change that much. So it doesn't mean that they were Jewish descendants of Jews or necessarily because of the fact that the mitochondrial DNA doesn't change as much as the Y chromosome DNA changes, because of course the mitochondrial DNA is a lot fewer letters. So, and it really doesn't change very much, but it changes just enough to give a lineage of whether it's Semitic, African, or Eurasian from Japheth. Okay, and many Europeans have Hebrew roots. This lady is good. I wrote it myself, believe it or not. It's my book that I want to publish on Kindle. So, but yeah, it was pretty impressive. That's why I wanted to share it with everyone on my channel here. She would know better. Duh. Mark Reed could derail her. She hardly even draws a breath. Mark Reed couldn't derail her. Yeah, Mark Reed. Mark Reed just spews stuff out of the top of his head. He just spews whatever comes to his mind. It's horrible. There's Mark Reed. Lungs of a whale. Yeah. Encore. They have low T. Having curly hair. Perhaps Hitler was. He had. As a matter of fact, I think he had an I2. I forget. I2, but he did have I think he had I think he had a Semitic eye. I forget what it was. Matter of fact, let me just go ahead and look here, see what this is here. See, Hitler DNA. I should know. I should remember which is which. Come on, why can't they just show it? Hitler. Let's say Y DNA. Y DNA. Oh, it's E1B1. There it is. E1B1. It's basically Egyptian or whatever. But like Einstein had an E1. I don't know. Is that for sure or what? Yeah, E1B1. It just says E1B1B, whatever. Anyway, um, yeah, that's about it. Um, okay, thanks for everybody joining and participating, and I'll see you next time. And maybe if somebody wants to check out my books online, I only have one right now. It's called The Variable Speed of Light. And this one here that I highlighted here would be called something like Identifying Human DNA Relationships. Is pretty much what's going to be published, maybe with a few corrections or something. So God bless everybody. Take care and have a great week and Merry Christmas, of course.